put your link in the chat. All right, cool.
Oh, no worries.
Awesome, awesome. Well, here we are on another Saturday morning, this wonderful leading up to Christmas season, holiday season, and I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful friend from TikTok. It's Pete, and I guess your handle, Pete, is Pete and JJ Retro Gaming, correct?
That's correct.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the cafe, by the way. Do you like coffee? Are you a coffee guy?
I love coffee. Yes, it's my morning fuel.
All right, cool. Because, this is a morning coffee podcast, I like to say. We do it every Saturday morning, and it's been, I think you're probably going to be our last guest before the new year. So really happy to have you on, man. Thanks for taking the time. We're going to get into a lot of what you do, and you do some cool stuff in and around 3D printing. But let's take a quick moment and go back in time and just let everyone know, what is Pete's story? What is your story about video games? What is it about when you were a child that got you into gaming in the first place? And I always put my guests on the spot, so give us a little background on that.
Of course. Thank you so much, first of all.
Yeah,
my
man.
personal story, I remember when I was born in 77. So when I was a little kid, like in the early 80s, we had an Atari 2600 at home. And that was pretty much like the family console in a way. My dad will play with his brothers, and, he had a bunch of games, and he'll have all this not really, long hours, but, Saturday afternoons, after a family meal and whatnot, he'll set up the 2600 and play. And I remember me and my older brother at the time would always be there, like pestering the adults, like, can we play? Can we play? Can we play? And eventually they did let us play, but not all that much. So I have, good memories of the 2600, but the system that really did it for me was the NES. And I remember even the quality of video games jump from the 2600, which was a beautiful system in so many ways, but the quality of graphics, sound,
some really terrible looking games on the 2600.
Exactly.
When you back then it was like a big deal, but I guess looking back on the Atari 2600, you're like, some of the games were not that good looking.
No, I mean, I think the better looking one for me was Pitfall, the one where you had to.
Dude, that was great. One of my favorites.
That was a good one. Yeah, exactly. But then the first time you start Super Mario 1 on the NES, I was like, oh, what is this? Like, this is awesome! Like all the sounds, and it's so rich, and the graphics and the controls. And so, yeah, that's the one that I'm most fond of, and the best memories. And it was my jam. Like, that was my system, and that's the one that I'm more heavily connected to emotionally, and all this nostalgia about it. It's awesome, and I love that there's a retro gaming community to keep it live.
Yeah, and that's something we could talk a little bit about. Is I've been recollecting retro games for 10 years. But in the last 3 to 4 years, the retro gaming communities have exploded. And there's like this kind of, and this goes for even in retail today, like you got Nintendo, Sega, like buying into their own nostalgia and reselling like the mini NES or the mini Genesis, like really bringing back that love. And I think they figured it out. They're like, wait, we should really pay homage to all of our old games.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing your story. So I do want to ask you another question. So you're from Canada.
Yep.
Also, Biff Bufflington, who's a good fan of the show, and he's in chat. He's a Canadian, but I think he's on the west side. He's over in Vancouver.
Nice.
So just like America, the NES came out as the Nintendo Entertainment System, not the Famicom. So Canada had the same treatment as the US did. So you were getting
exactly the same. Yeah,
it was exactly the same. And you guys had Toys R Us, right? And you still have Toys R Us, technically.
We still do. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's coming back in the US, by the way.
I heard.
But in like a pop-up style, like in Macy's and stuff. But what was that like as a kid? Like what was the video game store in Canada you used to go to as a kid and buy games? Was there a
Toys R Us for sure? We have here Canadian Tire.
Canadian Tire?
Yeah.
Like
sounds
tire?
Like
a tire
place? It started like that. In reality, it wasn't like a auto repair and body shop thing for all your auto needs. right? So you will go buy tires, and still today they do that. But then
Interesting.
it really, over the years, it morphed into more of a superstore of most of everything, right? So it's almost like a Walmart type thing. And they used to do rentals as well. So you would either go to Blockbuster to rent games. When I know the whole rental thing is a whole different topic in a way, in its own way. But
Oh yeah.
to buy things, yeah, Toys R Us was a big one. Then we had Sears here. We no longer have. Well,
No,
I guess
Sears is gone.
it went down
It's
everywhere, right?
poor Sears.
I know,
Uh,
and that's the ones I remember the most. Toys R Us, Sears, Canadian Tire.
Fun fact about Sears is that this was like circa 2002 when I was in college. I worked in Sears Electronics, believe it or not. So, and I want to say this was around what was out, and it was like I forgot what's. It was like the tail end of the Dreamcast era, the Sony PlayStation 1 era. But I was selling games at Sears even then, but now Sears is gone, unfortunately. Rest in peace, Sears. No
I
Fear
know.
says he's moving to Canada to get my Toys R Us big Christmas catalog. Oh
Oh,
yeah, those are cool.
I so many people across the border. I live like a 45-minute drive to Niagara Falls, right? And that's where, the border is. And pre-pandemic, that I think that's exactly when Toys R Us went under in the States, right? And we had so many people from Buffalo just making the drive so that they could go physically into a Toys R Us for the Christmas season.
Yeah, it's so sad that Toys R Us just died in America. And I did a video. So I was visiting my brother in North New Jersey recently, and in America, because all these Toys R Us went under, there's a lot of abandoned or just like empty stores that still have the Toys R Us signs on them. So
Oh, okay.
there's this one place that had the Toys R Us sign intact. I think it's pinned on my account, so Pete, you could check it out after.
I
But
will.
but there's a building where there's a totally different business in this building, but they kept the sign up there as like nostalgic purposes, and I thought that was cool. But Pete, awesome. I love, we've had many Canadians on this show, so always good. I always like to hear like kind of like, if you're not you didn't grow up in America, like what is the culture like in that particular country or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pete, so let's talk a little bit about, I discovered you on TikTok, but let's talk about TikTok. And
Sure.
I know that, and I do want to say that Pete does awesome stuff in the 3D printing world, which we're going to talk about. And also you do a lot of stuff with prosthetic, would you say, is it always hands and limbs or
It's mostly hands and arms. Yeah. And
cool?
fingers. Yeah.
And by the way, shout out to Mike. Mikey loves retro, of an actual TikToker as well. Giving a shout
Yeah.
out. What's up, Mikey? Good to see you, man. And he says Pete
Good
is an
man.
amazing, wonderful person. Wow, that's high praise for Pete. But Pete, tell me how you discovered TikTok and this retro community on TikTok, and tell
It's
me
fun.
that story.
I love that question. Thank you. So at the beginning of the pandemic, and I don't like, I guess, connecting things to the pandemic too much, but
Unfortunately,
it,
it's this world we live
it's
in.
inevitable, right?
Yeah.
But here's a positive thing that happened to me. My son JJ, who's the co-author of Pete and JJ Retro Gaming, uh, came to me one day. I didn't even know what TikTok was. This is, probably February 2020, right? So pandemic started around, I guess, March, lockdowns and all of that. And so he comes to me in February or so, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, can you help me start a TikTok account?" And I was like, "Yeah, what is this TikTok thing? I heard about it." And he's like, "No, it's like a social media platform. It's like short videos, kind of cool. I wanted to do something with gaming." And JJ, my son, he loves games, of course, and that's something that I've, as a dad, always try to do with my kids, was encourage a healthy balance of video games in their lives, because to me, video games had such a positive impact in my life. And I grew up in an era where violence in video games was a topic for parents, right? And it's like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
Mortal Kombat came out. No, don't let your children play that. That's too violent." And all of those topics that were like,
Sure.
woo. And so he came to me and said, like, "Can you help me set one up?" And I told him, "Ah, interesting." So I started looking up TikTok, and I go, "Why don't we do a retro gaming channel of sorts. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, we can do, and this is something that I'm particularly proud of. Ever since my kids were little, I've always tried to make that connection with retro gaming. I let them play their games, and they have their Nintendo Switch and their PS4. I haven't gotten the PS5 yet, but we will eventually. But I
Eventually.
always try, yeah, I always try to connect their like of video games to the things I played when I was a kid. And I always like to make that connection by telling them, oh, when I was your age, I used to play this, right? And then I'll pull up Super Mario 3 or Ninja Gaiden or Double Dragon. And then, little by little, and they play a little while and they get bored and they go do something else. But they always had that in their lives. And so when I told JJ, why don't we do a TikTok where I do the retro stuff and then you do the more modern games. And he was on board with the idea, and that's how we started Pete and JJ Retro Gaming. And yeah,
The
that
rest
was
was
that was
history.
exactly. And then that's how we got started.
Yeah, and I think because I've had a lot of TikTokers on here, and Mikey says amazing games, by the way, and he agrees. I got into TikTok because I started the podcast and I wanted to potentially do like highlights.
Hmm.
But then like I realized like, oh, let me show some of my retro games. And I noticed everyone was bad. I was in like the late 2019, early 2020 part of TikTok when people were still dancing all the time and
I know.
singing. There was not a lot of retro gamers. It was like the 1980s gamer, a few other people. There's like 5 of us, honestly.
Yeah.
And
for
and
sure.
and it, honestly, what makes me really happy is to see the growth of the community over the last few year, the last year or so. It's amazing, by the way. Like for instance, like Mikey loves retro in chat. Like I discovered him, discovered so many amazing people like yourself, Pete. But TikTok has just been a really great place to find people like you and just people that really care about the retro community, and that's what this podcast is all about. So that's why like some of my best guests have been like people from the TikTok universe.
That's
So.
awesome.
So yeah, great to have you, Pete. So let's talk first about 3D printing. That's something I haven't talked on here. I'm sure there's people out there that don't know what this is, but let's start. What is 3D printing, and how'd you get involved in 3D printing and in building these like Mega Man? And I have your Etsy page up here.
Thank
Uh,
you.
you built these like really cool. I don't know what you call them. They're like statues or cylinders, but
Like a diorama. Yeah.
diorama. Like, how did you get first involved in 3D printing, and then how did you get to making these?
Yeah,
Is what
that's
I
a
want
great
to know.
question. Yeah, of course. So it's interesting. I work in construction management, and I enjoy it. It's a good job to have for sure.
Yep.
And probably about 4 or 5 years ago, there was this committee for innovation and new technology, and they invited me on that, and they said, why don't we do some research on new technologies? And I brought up 3D printing to them, and I said, well, I think we should look into this. I think it's fairly, I mean, 3D printing has been around for a long time. I think the better part of the past,
It's been
20,
a while.
30 years.
Yeah, but I think in
Yeah,
the last like 5 years, it's really taken
it
off on a consumer level. Like a lot of people are
exactly.
just buying it. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's much more affordable. Now you can find 3D printers, for $200, $300. So pretty much anybody can go on Amazon and buy one. And so I did that, and I started researching how to use one. And I bought this, little printer, like $300 worth little printer. And while I was doing my own, I was Googling, where do I get started? How do I make this, work, and this and that. And I found about this organization called Enable
And I
that
have the site up here.
yeah, that's the one. And I thought, what a neat idea. And basically what they do is they assemble a network of people that own 3D printers in their own homes, and they want to volunteer their time and materials to make and donate free of cost prosthetic hands
Amazing.
to anybody who may require them, right? And this community started, I think, about 8 years ago, and it's just exploded all over the world. And people, and that's the best part of humanity, I think, in so many ways, where anybody can just go and raise their hand and say, I want to help. And I was one of those. and I thought, what a neat idea, and I can both learn how to make this cool engineering type devices, and at the same time learn about 3D printing, and at the same time donate them. And now fast forward to the beginning of our TikTok, and I thought, how can I make now this awesome retro gaming community aware of this? Because one of the things that I think it's is one of the biggest challenges for TikTok, sorry, for Enable, is making more people aware that this exists, and that if you know of someone who may need one of these devices free of cost, just reach out and we'll try our best to accommodate it. And so I started, I think I did a little video of one thing I was 3D printing, and then I got a lot of attention and questions about, oh, that's interesting. What about that? And so I started explaining a little bit, and then the idea came to me: how can I merge these two passions that I have, retro gaming, 3D printing, and Enable? And then I came with this idea of, what if if I can make a 3D printed product that I can sell, uh, then I can raise some funds, raise awareness, and use those funds to fund the Enable donations that I do. Because again, this all comes out of pocket, so I can only do so many per year. And the responses has been just, it blew my mind, right? Like, I made this, I designed all of these little capsules and dioramas of Samus, and I trust me, I had no clue that Metroid Dread was going to be such a success and such a hit. And I had so
Good,
many
great game.
orders of wonderful game. And
Wonderful
I've
game.
been a huge Metroid fan, from the early, Metroid. But then, the whole connection all kind of, came full circle. And all the orders started coming onto my Etsy shop. So I started an Etsy shop. I'm also a big Mega Man fan. I don't have any right now on my Etsy shop. They are sold out, but I'm working on restocking them. But anyways, long story short, the Etsy shop helps me fund the donations of 3D printed prosthetics, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And I thought
And
that was a cool way of,
and has
win-win.
TikTok helped you market those success?
100%.
And I think that's good to note, is like how TikTok has probably helped you get the word out there. You know?
100%. That a lot of my the earlier buyers, like I was even in contact with the very first buyer on my Etsy this year. I was looking at some of my, analytics and stats and whatnot, and then I tracked down the very first person who believed in, well, let's give this a go, right? And let's buy one of these little capsules. And I got in contact with him. I want to send him a little gift because I thought, this was so important for me, right? The first person who actually paid money for me to have them send one of these. And it's,
It's a good
again, it's,
feeling.
oh, amazing. And more importantly to me, I work hard in making sure that whoever buys anything from our Etsy shop, it's satisfied 100%, and they're happy with what they're doing. But I also try my best to let them know what you're buying here is also helping a greater purpose, right? And that's, to me, is very
That's
meaningful, making
that's
that connection.
that's the best part. Like I said, I work in the nonprofit space myself. I work for Stand Up to Cancer. So I do, I work. It's not prosthetics, but we're helping cancer patients, and
Of course.
there's probably people that do have prosthetics that have cancer, connections. Everyone does, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
it's really great to hear and learn about a new nonprofit that I didn't know about. I did tell you about Able Gaming, which sounds similar,
Yes.
but dude, have you like seen a child like wear one of your prosthetics? And like, do you
Yeah.
have you what
I
is that? That must
it's
be so
uh,
rewarding and
it
that
is.
such a good feeling, right?
It is. And it's interestingly enough, like here in Canada, we have universal healthcare,
Oh,
and
lucky
prosthetics
you.
is, I know. And trust me, I say it with a bit of a heavy heart sometimes, because I know not everywhere in the world that is the case, right? And
America.
unfortunately, and most of my cases have been in the States. And one of the very first ones that I did donate, and I got in touch with the person that ended up receiving the device, was a veteran in Virginia who was going to one of the VA hospitals there, had lost both hands,
Oh
uh,
man.
you know, doing a tour in Afghanistan or something like that. And an older person, or I mean older than me, and he had a whole team of people working with him, but they had funding troubles, and of course they decided to reach out to Enable. And I saw that, and I just jumped into that opportunity and said, you know what, this is the very first one I'm going to donate, but I want to do it. I'll work with you, whatever it takes. And so we got started. We assembled a little team, and we did the sizing, we did the digital files and the 3D printing, then assemble, and then ended up sending it to him, and he was extremely happy. Like, he sent us a really heartfelt email, and that I still keep in my archives there. And I thought that
That's
was such a
amazing,
cool thing
man.
to do. And then
I'm
ever
gonna
since, I think,
cry. I'm gonna
oh,
cry.
please don't.
I honestly, showing that Enable trailer was like that video. I was like gonna cry over here. Keep
you
going.
know
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No, 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 it's all good.
off.
Trust me, I felt the same, and it still hits me hard
It hits
when
hard, man.
when I see a kid, right? Because I have children myself, and I've seen some of these children, and sometimes I can't, right? I'm like, I just stop everything I'm doing, and I just work on those cases until I get something up to the kid that needs a hand. Like, I can't go in my mind, like, there shouldn't be a world where there is a child that needs a prosthetic device. Like, and one of the very first, and I'm gonna get emotional now, but one of the very first things that I learned, and how I learned about Enable, was this beautiful story about a kid who was always made fun of because he was born without a hand. And whenever he will go to school, and you probably can find it there somewhere, it's deep in the archives of Enable. But
Mm.
kids, it's not that they're mean per se. Some unfortunately can be, but they just don't understand different things, right? And so they will point at him and, like, look at that kid, like, he's so weird. And so he always felt like, the weird kid, like, and so this affected his own self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
emotional being tremendously. And so that's how Enable got started, with the very first hand, and it was very rudimentary, pretty much like what you see on screen right there, like made of leather and
Mm-hmm.
bolts and screws and whatever. And it evolved quickly because more and more people learned about this initiative, and they decided, oh, we want to contribute. I'm a medical engineer. I can donate you this. I can donate my time. I can help you develop one new one, and so on and so on and so on. And so, after months of work, really hard work, they came up with this beautiful, hand that looks, something like this, this beautifully designed, colorful, and then they put this little superhero theme hand for this child.
I saw
And
a few that were like the Spider-Man colors and stuff.
exactly, and the most beautiful thing to me was the change in the life of this child. I think he was like 7 or 8 years old, going now back to school with a bionic super hand, and now he went from being the shy kid that everybody pointed at and looked weird, to the
Mm-hmm.
coolest kid in the whole school. Like, look at that kid, he's got a bionic hand, like, he's the coolest, everybody wants to be your friend now. And I was just in tears, like, I was watching that, I'm like, gee, I want to be part of that, like, in any, even if it's just a little tiny portion of that, I want to be part of that.
Oh my God, that's a great story, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that makes sense because these kids these days, it's all about superhero movies, looking up to heroes, and it's really really cool to hear that, like, he went from, I don't, but by having that bionic hand, he was looked at as like a cool person, like a superhero almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, Pete, that's great stuff, and it's interesting that 3D printing has enabled kind of it. Has there been an advancement? Has 3D printing always been tied to prosthetics, or is that something kind of
No,
new that they've been kind of
it,
utilizing to
it
help?
it's relatively new. And I was looking at some cases. Like, in reality, there's people that they sell this for profit, and rightfully so, right? Like there's a lot of engineering,
Sure,
there's
of
a lot
course, of
of
course.
I don't go against that. Like they develop these, and there's a lot of engineers and genius bright minds that design and develop these. But those can be very expensive, right? And especially even like I was speaking about how we have universal healthcare here in Canada. Yeah, and we do, and it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's also not going to pay for your $50,000, robotic bionic, right? It's going to pay for a simple device that can help you get by, but it's not going to be, the latest and greatest.
Mm-hmm.
And so 3D printing technology, I think it's enabling um, more affordability around the better design prosthetic devices. And we are careful when we say prosthetics, because we had some actual
Oh,
prosthesists joining in and saying, we love what you do, but be careful with the term prosthetics, because if you're not a licensed prosthesist, you could end up in some form of trouble. Again, I don't think anybody's going to go sue you for trying to help somebody in need, but at the same time, so we call
hmm.
them assisting devices, right? Or
Assisting devices makes sense.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Some people still call them prosthetics, and it's fine, and they are prosthetics, and in all for all purposes. But in reality, I think what to your question, 3D printing is now allowing more people. Like all you need to do anywhere in the world where you are is just own a $200 $300 3D printer, and you can make these anywhere in the world. And so it's now helping reach the people that couldn't even dream of these devices. And I've been working even with some organizations in South America. Some people from Central America have reached out,
Is that
and
where you're from, Pete?
I was born in South America.
Okay.
I lived. I've been all over the place.
Okay.
I was born in South America. I moved to Italy. I moved to the
Ooh.
States. I lived in Maryland for a while, and then to Canada, and then I've been for the longest time in Canada. But yeah,
Oh wow, Italy. What was that like?
interesting,
Yeah.
interesting,
Mikey's
beautiful culture.
Mikey says Italy. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That and it's always like, I've always lived in America, and I wish I've experienced living other places. So it's kind of cool. Um, Dude, I don't know what to say. Like, this is really incredible. And as a person that works in the nonprofit space, to be part of helping a nonprofit that is helping with assisted, what did you say they're called? Assisted
Assisting
devices,
devices. Yeah,
is incredible. These kids, as a gamer too, what is synonymous with gaming is playing with your hands, right?
pretty
So
much. Yeah.
a lot of these kids don't have the ability to play video games, and I'm sure even with the assisted devices, it's still not something very easy for them to do.
Hmm.
Um, but at least it gives them a feeling of having that, being able to grab things again. I can't imagine what it's like for the kid when they get their arm, and also
Yeah.
to like get different color ones, like to really make it a
Yeah.
part of their childhood, like you said, by doing superhero things.
Yeah. To
Um,
date, I've been able to donate about 25 of these myself,
oh
25 actual
man,
cases. And I'm looking to a lot more now that we've got more funding in place. And this year I've donated more than any other year before.
cool.
Thanks
And
to the TikTok community, to the gaming community, to the Etsy shop, like more funds, more research, more materials, and we can do more.
and
So
let me
that's
just throw this in chat. If you want to donate to Enable, here is their donate link. You could check them out as well. I put the website down there. Maybe Genzo, you can add those to the running Nightbot. Yeah, Pete, I don't know what to say, but this is awesome. And I think, how long have you been on TikTok, by the way? Have you been more
uh
recent, like this year, or were you
it
here earlier?
was no, we were here March 2020.
Oh, really? It's so interesting. I've like there's so many people that I discovered later that I found out were actually on TikTok earlier, and it's like my For You just never like connected me over to you guys. So I didn't really discover you till this year, and I'm glad I did.
Thank you.
And you know, you're an excellent, excellent contributor to the retro community, and appreciate all the amazing work you do to help kids every day. Because
Thank you.
I literally could almost cry on all these amazing stories you're sharing. And it's really cool to have someone like you on the show that's doing good every day. So it really means a lot. Thanks for all your hard work, man.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate, the invite and the opportunity.
Of course. That's what it's all about, sharing what we do, no matter what you do. This retro community, it's really amazing, all the people I've been meeting. And, you're just one of the other people that I've added to the list of just really great people that I've had on the show. Many more to come. I know Mikey loves retro. I know I plan to have him on and a bunch of
Mikey is
definitely. Mikey makes me laugh, and he's a fellow New Yorker too, I believe. So that's where my roots are. Yeah. So every show we kind of talk about one simple topic. Pete. I know I love everything we talked about, and I know it's a weird segue, but this is a video game podcast, so let's talk a little bit about a video game topic I've been wanting to talk about. And first, right now, Spider-Man the movie is out. I haven't seen it, so no spoilers here.
I haven't seen it either, but I'm planning on.
Are you a fan of all these Marvel movies? Are you a person that watches all these superhero movies? Do you have a love of Spider-Man in particular? Did you read comics? What's your connection to Spider-Man?
I grew up in the 80s. Come on.
All right.
Spider-Man was my jam. Yeah, I love Spider-Man. I'm not so much into the later, I love all things superheroes. Let me start there. And, I grew up with Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, the early, movies and all that. I love them all. I loved the comics as well. The later ones, like the more recent ones, I haven't been, all that great to follow them all. But no, I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man for sure.
Me too. Spider-Man has, even before all these movies came out, but I mean, I will say the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 is still one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. I grew up as just like being a New Yorker, being from New York area. Spider-Man is, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but he's from New York and grew up in New York. So I always had that connection with him. Like, oh, he's like a total New Yorker kid. But one thing that I don't know if a lot of people realize, they made a ton of Spider-Man video games over the course of the generations. Why? Because why not? I mean, he's Spider-Man. You got to. What I want to do is and some of these games I've never played before, and some of them I have played before, but one of the first iterations of Spider-Man that we can go back in time to is the original Spider-Man 2600 game.
I remember that. Believe it or not, I remember that one. And
I like to pull this one up because I'm like, I played this. I really, really have fond memories of playing this. And it had mixed reviews. It was kind of clunky and weird, but look at it. You got to give them credit for doing their absolute best on trying to bring Spider-Man to the 2600. Like,
with the limitations of the system,
this
is actually remarkable, right?
Yeah, it's just kind of like ridiculous, but it's really nostalgic. Like, look, there's Hobgoblin at the top on his flying thing, and like, did you play this game?
I did. My dad had this one, and we played it. It was difficult though. Like that gameplay that you're showing right now,
so hard.
Actually, it takes a while, but I played this one and it was fun. You're right. Like, even the simplest thing, right? Like being able to connect something so iconic as Spider-Man to now a video game, right? Like the crossover, it was mind blowing.
It was.
But yeah. Looking back, probably not the best game, but fun.
Yes, and let me. So this game was officially released in 1982, a year after I was born. Platforms it was on was not only Atari, but it was the Magnavox. It was also on.
Was that supposed? I was reading something about the Magnavox, and it's supposedly the very first consumer console available, right?
The
Like on
Magnavox
oh
Odyssey was the first true home console, technically. Here, let's pull this up. It it, uh,
yeah.
it was considered the first one. Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
And it had the controllers that were more of a wheel on the left and the right. But it was like kind of like the first iteration of like an at-home console, you know. So yeah, let's move up this gambit of Spider-Man games. The next one I have is what's called, it's an Amiga. This was the Amiga version of it, which is a computer game, and this is The Amazing Spider-Man Captain America in Doctor Doom's Revenge. Have you ever heard of this game?
I've heard about it. I've seen it. I've never played it.
I've never played it either, but I thought it was really cool. And if you take a look at it, the graphics are kind of cool looking. I don't know how good the gameplay doesn't look amazing, but
Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, pretty neat. You know, look,
Yeah,
well,
from the 2600 to this,
it's
huge.
It's
Right?
a huge jump. So let me give you a couple of facts on this one. This was released actually a bunch of years later. This is 1989, but it was on the Amiga. Actually, it was on Atari, Commodore 64, and DOS, but I think the Atari computer versions, not like a 2600. But really, not bad looking. I never played it. I'm not sure anyone has that I know has played it. Mikey Loves Retro said yes. Amiga was a great. I didn't have a Commodore, but I did have an Apple computer. Did you have any of those? Did you have Commodores? Did you have anything like that when you were a kid?
It was all MS-DOS for me.
DOS.
We had, a PC, a very old PC, like one of those CGA or EGA, like 4 or 16 color palette, big screen CRT type things. And that's where I would play some. Yeah.
Those were the good old days too. I love DOS. So next up is The Amazing Spider-Man 1990, and this is another PC game. This was on.
I played that one. Yeah.
This is on the Amiga, Atari, Commodore 64, and the DOS as well. So this one you played.
I played that on my PC. Yeah, and it was actually really good.
Yeah, this is cool
smooth
looking too.
Yeah.
I don't think I played this one actually. This one looks cool though. Was that 3CPO though, or was that R2D2? Like, what's going on here? Is this Star Wars and Spider-Man or something? Come on, that's got to be a ripoff of Star Wars. Like, look at that.
Been, eh? Yeah, look at that.
That is totally R2D2. What's going on? Okay, so this game was 1990. And then here's one that I did play very much, and some people didn't like it, or some people did, and that's the Game Boy. The Amazing Spider-Man 1990 for the Game Boy. Did you play this one?
No, I did not.
This one was, I have fond memories because I actually played a lot of it. I actually remember being like on a road trip and playing Spider-Man in the back of my car. I honestly I haven't played this in years, and I think for the time it was good, but I think looking back it doesn't hold up very well. But look at that. Good old friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
For 1990 and for the early Game Boy, this is remarkable.
It's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. Then next up, we're going to move to a really good one. Well, a kind of cool one. Let's see if I have it here. Nope. Yeah, this is it. The Amazing Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin. This is 1991 Master System, Mega Drive, Genesis, Game Gear, and Sega CD.
I have this today in my collection.
Oh, that's awesome. Look at the graphics are cool.
Yeah, it's really fun to play. It's
there's Doc Ock.
Yeah. Yeah.
That Mikey says this one is great. Yeah, I think this one is good. Look at that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good game, yeah.
That's pretty neat.
The gameplay is good. It's very smooth.
Oh, the pinball thing. Oh my god. I forgot all about this. This is cool, man. And there's Mysterio. Love one of my favorite bad guys in the Marvel universe. And must give shout out to Jake Gyllenhaal for his amazing performance as Mysterio. Because, dude, honestly, Mysterio in my eyes was one of the best Marvel villain adaptations.
I agree.
And it was very a modern twist on Mysterio.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like, got to give it up to Mysterio, man. So next up, let's see. There's a lot of games. So this is the sequel to the first game I showed you. This is Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the Game Boy. which looked a little bit similar, and there's Hobgoblin. I guess you could fly on Hobgoblin's thing. Obviously, another Game Boy game. Let me see, what year was this one? This one was 1992. Simpler times, good old times. And now next up that I have here is, let's see, is Spider-Man Return of the Sinister 6. And this was released in 1992 as well for the NES, Master System, and Game Gear. And
I never played this one.
let's see.
Looks
This is a
nice.
cool name, though.
Yeah.
Kind of relates to whatever this movie that I'm going to go see today is all about. The Sinister Six is a really cool, like, if you ever read comic books, I was a big comic book collector. I don't talk about, I have all my original comic books from my childhood.
Oh,
my
nice.
mom tossed out all my video games, but she didn't toss out my comics. But
Good.
I don't talk about them enough. I should probably show some more comics on my TikTok. But I didn't play this one either. So there's so many games, by the way. Now here's one you might have played, and this is let's see, Spider-Man and X-Men Arcade Revenge. And this came out also, wow, a lot of Spider-Man games came out in 1992 for some reason. This was on the NES, Mega Drive, Genesis, Game Gear, and Game Boy.
No, I never played this one, but this looks amazing. I'm going to look it up.
Sonic in chat says, boy, do I remember this one. One of my first introductions to Spider-Man. That and Spider-Man on Saturday mornings. Yes,
Nice.
yes. This one I didn't play myself as well. But love the crossover, and definitely Spider-Man did a lot with the X-Men in the comic books, so it's really cool to see. Mike says, never played this one too. We'll have to add it to my EverDrive. Nice. I love the EverDrive. That's cool that you have one. All right, next up, we're moving a year later. I just read off like 5 games made in 1992. Now, this is 1993, and it's another Game Boy game, and this time it's called The Amazing Spider-Man 3 Invasion of the Spider Slayers. And again, looks pretty much the same as the original, maybe a little bit better, but you got to love the Game Boy for its black and white graphics.
Yeah.
So you never played it? You weren't a big Game Boy person? Is that
No,
or you
I
didn't
only had, I still have my original Game Boy I got in '89.
right?
I only had Tetris and one of the early Kirby games, and that was my go-to thing to play on road trips. I will just start my Tetris and play Tetris mindlessly for hours.
Oh, nice. I love that. So this is Amazing Spider-Man for the Super NES, and this came out in 1994, I believe.
This one I played.
And look how cool Mysterio looks in this.
Yeah,
That green outfit with the purple cape, so cool.
well, the evolution to the Super Nintendo for sure, made it so many more possibilities there for the gameplay, right? And yeah, I did play this one. I don't own it. I never did, but I rented it a few times, and it was a good game. Yeah.
Sonic says, I also only had the OG Game Boy Tetris and Super Mario Land, where what I played constantly. Nice. All right, moving up to one that I think many have played, and that is the one and only Spider-Man Venom Maximum Carnage, which is one I still have, of course.
Yeah.
What did you think of this one? This one was, I don't know. It's kind of like it's one of the most, I think, remembered games that came out. I mean, a lot of people have this one.
Yeah. This is a great game.
This is great.
It's the beat 'em up nature of it makes it even better. I love it. Yeah.
And I saw Did you see the Carnage movie?
Yeah, I did.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Venom
It was
too.
good. It was good. Yeah.
I mean, I think Woody Harrelson was great as Cletus Cassidy, is that his name? He was great. And by the way, is it me or have Woody Harrelson has not aged in like 30 years? He looks exactly the same.
I know, right? It's such a likable guy too.
Yeah,
right?
he's great.
He's amazing.
I'm just always like, because he's in his 60s now, and I was like watching Venom 2. I'm like, damn, Woody Harrelson looks great. Hasn't changed his look in like 30 years, man.
Yeah.
But this was a good one. This is the red cart, I believe. And I do have this one. And I also have like this kind of I like to collect like different color carts, and I do a lot of that with the N64 because the N64 had a lot of random color carts. So anytime there's like a different color card iteration, I like it. All right, so we're moving down the chain here, and we're almost to the end. Spider-Man, the animated series for the Super NES. Damn, they made so many Spider-Man games. So this game was released on February 13th, 1995. So now we're in the mid-90s. Great year. 94, 95, great times. Pulp Fiction came out in 94. You know, it was a good time to be alive. Did you have any memories of this one? And this is primarily Genesis for me, I think.
Yeah, I think I played this one. I played a lot of these Spider-Man games growing up. I probably played this at a friend's house or something. But great game. Yeah.
Great game.
Really, really good looking game.
Doing this, I'm realizing like, wow, you know, they've really taken advantage of the Spider-Man IP in the video game universe. So pretty neat. All right, so let's see here. Let me see what's next in this wonderful list that we got. Is this surprising you that there's this many games for Spider-Man, or
actually it is? You know, I didn't know how many are there. Probably probably more than 50.
Spider-Man. Here's the next one: Spider-Man and Venom: Separation Anxiety. It's called. I never played this one. Let me find out what year this one was made. This one was 1995 for NES, Mega Drive, and Genesis and PC.
Wow.
And serving as a direct sequel to the 1994 Maximum Carnage.
Hold on. This is NES, not Super Nintendo?
Super NES. Sorry. Yes. Super NES. Sorry, I said NES. I meant Super NES, Mega Drive, Genesis, PC. Okay. And Mikey says, I believe this is based off the arcade. That could be correct. But again, it looks very similar to Maximum Carnage, and I guess that's why it's a sequel. So let's see what's next. I got here. The Nintendo 64. Now we're moving into the 64. This is Spider-Man for the 64. I don't know if you ever. What's your connection with the 64?
It's definitely less than the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. I played quite a bit, but not as many games. No, and I own a 64 now. I only have a handful of games, but no, I never played this one.
So this one was released in August 30th of 2000, and this is one I don't think I played either. But interesting enough. Oh, let me play it. You know, you're starting to see more evolving of the gameplay, right? Now he's climbing buildings. Hey, he was climbing buildings in the Atari 2600 version too, but it looks like a building, right?
The different cameras too, right? Like the third person nature of the game, the 360 camera. That's a whole thing that got introduced with the 64-bit era.
This one looks pretty cool, actually. I like the different outfit he's wearing here. And then let's see, we got Spider-Man the movie, which was released in I think 2002. Let me double check on that.
This is on the Wii, I think.
This is Spider-Man the movie, released on the Game Boy Advance, GameCube, PC, PS2, Xbox.